this is a pretty interesting topic because firstly, wallets are not the same thing to many people. You know, there's so many different flavors of wallet, and I come mainly from the payment card world, and cards are more or less similar around the world. Wallets are clearly different in just about every jurisdiction, different regulations, different business models, etc. So I think, you know, it's going to be quite interesting to get some of these different perspectives. And in terms of a panel, we've got a real different perspective. We've got a banker who's actually trying to offer a wallet. We've got an organisation who's trying to influence the regulators and set some consistent standards in the Arab world. We've got an organisation that's been traditionally associated with security, was doing security before anybody worked out there was ever a thing called the mobile wallet, and they're now trying to obviously take their security heritage into the mobile world. And then we've got another organisation that was really set up specifically to tackle the mobile end of the market and from a security perspective. So if we hadn't have got to the mobile wallet and mobile commerce and all this stuff, we wouldn't even have this company. So we've got four very, very different perspectives on the market and the issue here. And before we kick off, there were just a few things I picked up from some of the sessions I sat through yesterday. I heard one very enthusiastic gentleman turning around saying that he could now do in his bank, he could do absolutely everything on the mobile. He got every service being delivered through the mobile channel, and he just had, and in fact the only thing left for him to solve was security. And I thought that was an interesting comment, that he was so enthusiastic and there was just this one problem left to solve, which was security. And I thought maybe that might have been a slightly bigger issue than he thought. Somebody else told me that payments is 100% about trust. And the last thing I heard was they said we mustn't get in the way of doing everything with one click. And I didn't quite understand how all of those work together. So that's really what the panel are going to try and shed some light on those issues, and also the whole business of, have we actually got rid of CNP and have the crooks now moved on to the mobile wallet environment? So I'm going to ask the panel to introduce themselves. I'm going to start at this end with Mohamed from the Arab ICT organisation. Just want to say a couple of words about your organisation, Mohamed.
Thank you, John. Arab ICT organization, I2, is a regional organization which is working under the League of Arab States. Our members are Arab governments, mainly ministries in charge of ICT, and also we are open to the adhesion of private sector. Our work is made under 4 pillars: digital transformation, digital trust, digital innovation, and digital inclusion. We are moving towards these 4 pillars. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Abrar. I am the Chief Innovation and Financial Inclusion Officer at HBL. HBL is the largest commercial bank in Pakistan, and at HBL, as a part of my role, among other things, one of the things that I work on is that I lead a business which is in the business of issuing the mobile wallets, and along with that, we also work on data analytics and open banking and a couple of other initiatives. But in relation to our topic today, I think that's the area that is more relevant, where we do go out and we onboard customers through a mobile wallet solution.
Hello everyone. My name is Moath Ismail. I'm looking after Gemalto digital sales focused on the banking and payment sectors. Gemalto, in a few words, is the leading company worldwide for the digital security and identities. We are providing the security, the digital ones, for both governments, banking sectors, IoT, telecom. During this session, I will focus more towards the digital security aspects when it comes to the banking and payment sectors, more focused on the mobile wallet, mobile banking application, as the concepts of the securities all the time around device and fraudsters, and we will see how we really can tackle them and avoid these frauds.
Hello, I'm Mark Chirnside. I'm the VP of Strategic Partnerships for Entersekt. Our product is a user engagement platform which is built on the basis of security and trust, and thirdly, it's mobile first always. Our customers are typically issuing banks and the large schemes, and we're bringing a product that will enable secure transactions across that platform, and then we bring a payment enablement on top, but we don't actually do payments.
So I wanted you to comment on how you see, as a bank, the difference between the risks associated with onboarding clients into the wallet and then when they've actually got the wallet, transacting with the wallet. So how do you as a bank and a wallet provider actually look at that?
Well, I think when we talk about our market particularly, we're fortunate enough to have a situation where we've got a centralized database of the citizens of Pakistan, where the government carries the biometrics, the fingerprints, as well as a facial database. And we have the ability to access that database to authenticate the customer at the time of signing up of the mobile wallet. So from that perspective, we believe we are reasonably secure in terms of preventing the frauds of identity theft, because the customer has to go through a biometric authentication at the time of signing up for a mobile wallet. When it comes to somebody who has signed up a wallet and they actually have an account and then somebody can come in and go out and try to abuse that, it's early days for us. We'd like to believe that some of the checks that we have put in place, they are reasonably good. So one of the things that we have put in place is that we do not allow you to use your mobile wallet from any random phone. So we pair the IMEI of the phone itself with your particular account, so only that handset that you use to register initially for the wallet is the one that is allowed to access that particular wallet. At the same time, if you want to add new beneficiaries or do any new financial transactions, we've recently moved to a point where we now send out a 64-digit one-time password that is automatically picked by the phone. So that has a very short expiry period as well. So it's not like somebody can do a social engineering and try and get your password. So these are the two things that we have done, and so far it's working for us. I guess only time will tell.
So zero fraud in your organization?
So far in this, and we've been in this business for about just almost a year now. Although we have signed up 2.4 million clients, but I think it's very early days because the transactions are now starting to really kick in. So we'll keep our fingers crossed and we'll hope that these measures are working. But we also understand that there will never be enough security, so we'll have to continuously evolve as we move forward.
We were talking before, and having run a financial institution, what I discovered is that the criminals never attack you till you get big enough. So in the early days, they tend to leave you alone because the last thing they want to do is to attack you and kill you off and close it down, because that's their future revenue stream gone. So criminals are quite sophisticated, so I hope you're right. So, Mohamed, you're trying to, so Abrar works in one market, which is relatively easy because you've got this database, you can authenticate people before in the enrollment process. But you're looking, as the Arab ICT, you look across many markets. And I know you had a forum last week. So how are you looking across multiple countries, and what came out of your forum last week? Because you're working with regulators, aren't you? You're trying to set standards across multiple markets. So how's it work for you, and what came out of your meeting?
Let me first introduce the background of our works, and you will understand how we are acting in the region. So in 2000, my organization, Arab ICT Organization, ICTO, has a lot of cooperation programs with regional and international organizations. And among them, we have a close cooperation with International Telecommunication Union. In 2017, during the Standardization Assembly of ITU, we proposed and obtained the creation of Fox Group on digital financial services. And in our activities in these groups, we are sharing ideas, best practices with private sectors, providers, merchants, and even civil societies. And this group elaborate periodically reports. So according to these reports, we have some elements. The key consumer protection issues are what happens to the consumer money if he loses, for example, his phone or SIM card. What should I do if my battery runs out of my connection is dropped midway through the transaction? Who do I call if I suspect fraud, and can I get my money back? So in order to get people on site, mobile wallet providers need to understand, meet or exceed consumer trust expectations. This means providers will need to address security and privacy concerns and safeguard against solution failure and backup mechanisms if, for example, the phone is lost or stolen, for example. So the key recommendation of our works are building user awareness is an important countermeasure for fraud. Risk-based authentication, RBA, is the most important tool available to enable a smooth payment experience while improving security. If there is an element of doubt, strong customer authentication can still be applied to provide an extra layer of security. Strong customer authentication, SCA, based on multi-factor authentication, is required for mobile payments and could have a negative impact on conversion in the short term for certain merchant segments and trading higher value goods, but this may be temporary as customers adopt the new procedure. The adoption of biometric as an authentication mechanism for better security and improved user convenience compared to passwords. Biometrics, however, are not a silver bullet and should be used in concert with other technologies. So, in this sense, regulators should develop app security guidelines to identify best practices to be implemented by developers to enhance security of mobile wallet application and reduce the risk fraud in occurrence. Central banks also require digital financial services providers to inform consumers whether mobile money and other digital stored value products are covered by the deposit insurance system or not, and if so, under what conditions. Public awareness initiatives should be carried out to raise consumer understanding of the deposit insurance system and its role in protecting digital financial services customer funds. This is the outcomes of the report, which has drafted after many meetings with all stakeholders in the world.
Okay, so you're trying to encourage, you've identified really the key factors about trust, etc., and you're trying to encourage the almost a consistent regulatory position across all of the markets in your territory. So, Mark, you're global, aren't you, with Entersekt? So, are you seeing consistent regulatory approaches? I mean, given you deal everywhere, I mean, how does it look from the view of a service provider like you, who's trying to protect wallets, trying to protect mobile money, trying to protect mobile many things in many, many geographies? So we'd all agree that Mohamed's objectives are very good. Is the job almost done, or is it not even started, around most of the world?
I think this is a very interesting point. And I would like to couple this one with your comment initially that the fraud attacks coming with the appealing target. They will not come for a startup companies where there are not a lot of really appeal for that one. I will back up this one with a few slides, which we have it today, from the Security Breach Index. As per this, I would say, if I recall well, the number of the records which were compromised in half one 2018 is 3.4 billion records. This is a global statistic. 3.4 billion records were compromised in H1 2018. This figure, just if you would like to run a bit of math, we are talking about 214 records compromised every single second. Let's take a bit the statistics more. This is 72% increase compared to the same period of 2017. This is not the whole of the story. The important point, even you see the increased number of the compromised records, the number of the attacks have actually been reduced. So what does it mean? It means the fraudsters having focused approach. It's a business for them today. They have focused approach when they are attacking the organizations in order really to get the most, between brackets, profit out of that one. And this is actually today the statement coming from the leading security organizations as well, like Kaspersky and McAfee, saying the challenge today is not only the number of the attacks, but it is more the sophistication and complexity of these attacks. And let me take the example of my colleague Abrar, for example, trying to protect a mobile app today using the device binding algorithm, using the IMEI address of that device. Definitely, this is much better than nothing. But let's take this one into prospects of the fraudsters today. Apple stopped this approach since iOS 5. So we are today in iOS 12. You have no access anymore in iPhone devices for the IMEI device. One of the most open platforms today is Android. They are stopping the access today to the IMEI with the Android Q. The beta release is already in process, expected to be there by end of Q3. So the point here, in order to tackle all of these attacks, I will quote what Gartner already mentioned in one of their reports, is stop protecting your application. It is the time for applications, mobile applications, to protect themselves and being as complicated as the fraudsters are already day in, day are improving. And for this one of the common technologies today, I think, Mark, maybe you're already using the same thing, is the RASP technology, the runtime application self-protection, where the application itself, whether it's a wallet, it's a mobile banking app, you can think of any app, needs to detect if there is any hacking for the application, if there is any debugging, reverse engineering for that application. And there is that type of complicated process in order really to make sure that your environment, your investment in the application, in the user interface, in the nice and best call flows which you have are protected. Otherwise, if they are compromised, the whole journey will have a break and then we go back. So this is the importance of what we are doing today when it comes to this point of the digital security.
Mark, how are you looking at that from your side? Because, and you don't only just, you said you're not in the payments business, right? I mean, you are trying to protect the channel and the technology more than, so you do things in healthcare and, so compromise isn't only about stealing people's money. In future, it could be about stealing your health records or your insurance data or many other things. So can you just give us your perspective on the issues that Moath has just raised?
Yeah, they range from all parts of the angle, from USSD in Southern Africa, where we're having to deal with SIM swap changes every 10 minutes, to device, going to your IME part on those devices, through to how long have you had a contract. We're having to do that type of configuration for each of the banks in Southern Africa. Through to the mobile apps, we're having to do the pinning. We're having to check whether the device has been rooted, jailbroken. We're having to check whether anything has changed since the last action. For example, adding a new fingerprint is actually a security violation to some banks. So I just added the other hand because this one hurts. It should stop my mobile app from working because it could be a risk. So we're having to do all of those things. From a regulatory point of view, going back to your earlier question, the PSD2 has been very good for Entersekt. Various regulations under PSD1 when I was in Europe was very good for my companies then. In Southern Africa, we're having to deal with 7 or 8 different countries' regulations, ranging from 2 pages long to something unwieldy and not used. So we're having to cope with all the different situations. And then you'll get a bank in Africa that's in 35 countries. And that brings a lot of challenges to regulation in particular. So, yes, we secure the mobile app. Yes, we make sure you haven't violated it since the last time. And then we authenticate you at all points along the journey. So at registration, at payment processing, or adding a beneficiary to I've lost my phone, or I'm changing my phone. A typical South African will change their phone number every 3 months. It's a very big problem. So we have to be careful. So we can't rely on phone number. It's not the way to go. And SMS OTP, therefore, fails quite a lot.
I mean, again, for those of us who spent time in the card world, there are organisations who can take a global approach to this and drive standards through. So, in a way, in the banking world then, and the mobile world, at least in Europe, you're seeing some commonality.
Yeah.
Are we going to get that? Who can possibly drive that in the mobile wallet world? Is there anybody going to drive it? Or are we going to end up with this corner of the world where there are some standards? Are we going to see everybody adopt the European standards because there's nobody else to set them? I mean, what's your view on that? Again, Mark or Moath, you guys are global providers. So how do you see that going?
Okay. At least from our experience today, we see the regulations are happening not in the same, I would say, pace in different parts of the world. I would say today the European regulations are the most advanced ones today when it comes to the PSD2, to the GDPR, and the rest of other regulations. What we see, the successful, I would say, financial institutes providing the wallets, providing the mobile banking apps, the right approach from their side today is not to wait for the regulation in their country to strengthen the regulations when it comes to the security part. They are actually taking the step ahead and following what the European requirements are today because they believe our regulations in the region here needs to be more adaptable with these I would say, type of regulations. I can give you 2 examples, different ones. The one which started from Mark about the SMS OTP. If you look today to most of the regulations in the region here, let me talk about the Middle East. Most of them talking about 2-factor authentications, but they are not imposing how these 2-factor authentications to be done today. So most of the banks, most of the wallet providers are taking, in order to comply, the easiest, I would say, route and say we do it via the SMS OTP. Yes, SMS OTP is vulnerable. You have a lot of issues with the convenience when it comes. However, the leading wallet providers, the leading banking, the innovations, financial institutes, what they are saying, guys, you are the leaders in this part of the technology. What do you think is the right approach? And then we talk about the cryptocurrency, the cryptography, which we are providing to generate the software token, which we use it all the time, binding it with the device, bringing the biometrics, bringing the next generation of the biometrics validation. This is, I said, 2 parts. So this is the part when it comes to the authentication part. But there is a new, I would say, trend today, which I think you Abrar, touched base on it, for the enrollment process. we cannot keep talking about the digital transformation, the digital journey, where customers still need to have a cumbersome process to be part of that journey. Whether they need to go and queue in the banks, in the financial suppliers, in order to provide hell of documents in order to be enrolled. So the best approach for this one, to do this enrollment via the digital channel completely. However, you need really to have the right regulations from the central banks, from the different entities to say, okay, to what extent you can go far on this process, to what extent you can rely on the validation of this document. And this is where, for example, from our side, Gemalto and Thales, we are working with the government to provide these documents, so it's easier for us to validate this document. And then what type of biometric validation we are doing. Yes, in some countries you will have a fingerprint, I would say, database that you can validate. But I can tell you, this is in most of the cases. We are working in South Africa, for example, it will not be the case. So you need to rely on what you have. Something which the users really use today, the selfie part. The user will take a selfie with a proper liveness detection, blink your eye, smile, move, and compare this one with what we collected from the...
So let me come back to Abrar. So when you're an operator, right? I mean, these guys always want to sell you systems and all the kind of capabilities, but you're actually trying to balance that ease of use and ease of registration and ease of use versus the risk of loss. So are there times when you've wanted to go more secure but felt it would intrude too much on the customer proposition?
Yeah.
Just tell us how, any examples you've got of that and how you're trading off this desire to be one click on everything versus you mustn't lose the money for the bank. So tell us, or the customer money, even worse. So tell us how you think about that and any examples you've got of where, you could have been more secure, put yet another system in, but actually it would make it, we'll end up with 3D secure in the bank system and everybody abandoning the transaction again. So tell us how you, as a bank, think about that and a wallet provider.
I think this is a very interesting debate within any large and mid-sized financial institution. So even for us, when we were rolling out some of the apps, be it for the wallet customers or be it for the regular branch customers as well, there's always that struggle with your information security department because they want to go out and, define the best possible and the most stringent standards that they can think of, because from their perspective, it's their job to be able to stand up in case something was to happen later on and say, you know what, we proposed the most difficult and the most secure solution that is out there. So we have experienced a situation where we rolled out a service for which our password requirement was it has to be 12 digits, it has to be a combination of special characters, alphanumeric, small case, capital case, and whatever else, and you need to be able to enter that using a virtual keyboard, and that virtual keyboard has to have the keys change every time you log in. And imagine people trying to log in. Obviously, nobody was able to log in. So obviously, I think at times you learn, you are forced to learn through experience, and then you go back for simplification. At other times, you are able to negotiate it up front that, you know what, let's go out and quantify the risk. So wallets is typically a small balance customer, and at the end of the day, the bank has to define that, this is our risk appetite. If there was a certain amount of fraud, we'll be able to manage that, we'll be able to compensate the customer, but we want to strike that balance between the customer convenience and the extent of security that we put in. It's never an easy task. It's always a challenge. It's always a balancing act that you're doing, but I think that's a continued struggle that we will always have.
Okay, that's great. I think we got some really different views there. Absolutely empathise with what you're saying about the difficulties of many things and the user experience. And I know the Thales guys in Gemalto do a lot about location. I cannot believe it, the amount I travel, and every time I get a message now saying, am I in Italy? Am I still in Italy? Are you really still in Italy? And you think, for God's sake, I wish a system could actually learn that that's where I am. So, I mean, you know, it's great to do location-based services, but if you do them in a way that's intrusive, it's a real problem. So, have we got any questions from the audience? No, well, I think all of us are around for the, you know, for the next few hours. So I'd like to thank the panel, each of them for their very, very different perspectives, and let's give them a round of applause. Thank you.